have our 9th Job to be Done webinar. It is about learning principles of jobs to be done thinking and the outcome-driven innovation process. And I'm very delighted that today we have a special topic. It's about getting better decisions faster. And it will help us to give a viewpoint to outcome-driven innovation from that perspective. And to bring in that perspective, it will be a shared webinar together with Jan Tatousek from Philips, which I will introduce to you in a minute. Now, what will be the agenda for today? What is to be expected? We will make a short introduction. Then there will be a summary of jobs to be done theory, very brief summary. What is jobs to be done? What is to be expected? What is that? And then we will really go into detail, and we will introduce you to the outcome-driven innovation process, which helps to put jobs to be done theory really into practice and operationalize it in your organizations. Now, this is a 6-step process that we will introduce based on a medical example. And we will then have a short summary on that, on how to integrate this way of thinking and also this kind of process into your organization. Now, you will have the possibility to post questions also in the Q&A window. There is a Q&A function in that webinar. Please bring in your comments, bring in your questions as they arise, and we will pick on that at the end of the session. It's a 1-hour session. So in about 50 minutes, we will then switch over and have a look at questions that you may come up with. Now, you probably already know me and have seen me also in the web. Now, I am managing partner of Edizon Innovation, and I've been doing this for more than 20 years now. So I'm really in the innovation space. For my background, I have an engineering background and also an economics background from my studies. And ever since, I'm extremely curious about how to make things better for people. Now, that is, so to say, my mission, and I share this with my team. Now, this is about approximately only half of our team that you can see on that picture here. Yes, and we are really focusing on gaining better understanding of customer needs and using that understanding to come up with growth strategies that deliver predictable success for the innovators organization and ultimately, of course, for a lot of people in the world. Now, I would like to introduce you to Jan Tatousek. And Jan graduated in 1988 from CVUT in Prague. His background is electrical engineering and human factors and also economics. A very broad background, and we are very happy to have Jan here in this webinar. Let me give you some more points about Jan, a little bit of background before he will introduce himself. Prior to joining Philips in 1999, Jan was a customer service operation manager in Rank Xerox and a country manager of Apple in the Czech Republic and Slovakia. In Philips, Jan has been involved in innovation projects since his relocation to the Netherlands in 2001. And since 2011, he applied the job to be done method in a variety of areas, including healthy activity, sleep, medication management, or patient engagement. Jan, your stage. Please come in.
Good morning. Thank you for the perfect introduction, Martin. I think that you told everything that is needed to know about me. So let's move to Philips for a moment. Just to give you an idea in which area we are at this moment applying the jobs to be done for innovation. You may recognize Philips as a company that has labels on many different consumer products. Those are at this moment mainly labels. Philips doesn't make that much of these products like TVs and so on. We are completely a healthcare company at this moment, focusing across the healthcare continuum, starting from diagnosis and treatment, that's the biggest, CT scanners, MRI, image-guided therapies. Then connected care, hospital patient monitoring, sleep and respiratory care, and personal health. That's, for instance, the toothbrushes and things like that. I'm mentioning it because these are all areas where we apply at this moment jobs to be done. And this is these are a couple of examples of projects that I have been involved in. You can see that it starts already 11 years ago when we did first one on medication management. We covered topics like patient engagement, primary care programs, cancer care. What I would like to mention here is especially the work with clinical partners. So we always work within projects with a certain clinical partner. Sometimes they are even recruiting patients. It's very good to work with clinical partners because then the project is very authentic. If the partner is not recruiting, we are using good recruitment agencies to just get the right sample of people. The regions that we covered were United States and Benelux mainly. All right, I think that's just to give you a picture of where we are active with the outcome-driven innovation.
Thank you, Jan. Now let us jump over to, so to say, the guiding question, the major guiding question for this webinar. And that would be, what makes it difficult to get a decision on innovation? And how can we summarize these difficulties when it comes to getting a decision on innovation? Please, for the audience, if you have viewpoints on that, just drop it into the Q&A. We may have a look at this as well then at the end of the session. Now, Jan, please share your viewpoints out of your experience.
Well, I think that there are many different factors that make the decision-making process relatively complicated. But I have selected 4 of them that I believe are essential. First of them is that people from different parts of the organizations, different functions, have different interpretation of the term innovation. For somebody, it is fixing bugs. For somebody, it is bringing the latest technology to the market. And I think that these are exactly the things where we have to be careful. I think it's very useful to align people in this interpretation that innovation is actually increasing value for the customer. That's what it is. And all the other things are basically just the derivatives. The second thing is the lack of objectively quantified data about these customer needs. Usually there are in the companies a lot of qualitative inputs. And it's not that easy to find out which one is the most important. Then comes the internal process that actually decides about the importance for the customer. That decision is usually not very reliable because it is laced with confirmation bias. People have a tendency to search for things that confirm and support their prior beliefs and choices. So what we found out is that it's really important to involve the customer, but to involve the customer in all the decision-making steps, not only to generate ideas in the beginning, but also to then select or identify the ones that are the most valuable. And that's where we found jobs to be done and ODI method as a very good, actually perfect way to execute it.
Yeah, thank you, Jan. And picking up on this one, probably if we have here experienced innovators in the webinar, you will have probably even 5, 10, or even more points on why it is difficult to decide on innovation or to get a decision on innovation. And putting all that together led in the late 80s of the last century, it led Tony Alvik, a former employee of IBM, to really consider an approach on innovation that will generate a substantially higher success rate than existing approaches. up until then. And he came up with the jobs to be done concept, and ultimately with a process that he called outcome-driven innovation that shall ensure a high level of success and a high level of customer centricity when it comes to innovation. And I would like to now guide you through the key findings of this approach, or the key elements of that approach. And it starts off with the first point that Jan was sharing, that very often innovation is not clearly defined, and there are different opinions and understandings of what innovation is, what a need is, and what a solution is. And to put it in very simple terms, innovation can be understood as a solution for a need. And ultimately, it is the process of devising solutions, and even better solutions, to address unmet customer needs. So now this looks very simple, and actually it is very simple in its definition, but many of you will agree that in practice, this is not as simple as it looks like from the first view. Now, let us consider that equation here. What are variables in this equation? In a very practical thinking, or out of experience, you will say that needs are changing over time, and needs can change very fast over time. So if that would be a variable, the need is a variable, then we have one variable in our equation here. And the solutions as well are changing. So ever new solutions are coming into the field, new technologies are popping up, and new possibilities arise to solve problems. So if we have now two variables in that equation, it will be really hard to resolve it in a predictable way. And therefore, and this was, so to say, the very analytical viewpoint from Tony back then, he said that a need cannot be a moving target. A need cannot be a variable that is always changing in the innovation equation. We must find a way to define a need as something that is stable over time. Now, how can we achieve that? And here, jobs to be done thinking comes into place. And jobs to be done puts a new lens on innovation. The basic understanding here is that people buy products and services only to get certain jobs done, and these jobs are really stable over time. So like this picture here, you have a drill, you have a hole in the wall. What it is that people really want to achieve when they use a drill, they want to get a hole in the wall. Probably they could also use other solutions to get a hole in the wall, but getting a hole in the wall, or installing something at home, or installing something on a commercial construction site, this is a job to be done that is rather stable. What will change over time are the solutions that people are using, and probably there will be better drills in the future. Probably there will be even other technologies in the future that help you get a hole in the wall, or that help you install something on a site. And that is the consequence here, that we want to make the job the unit of analysis, and ultimately also to define markets around that job to be done, and not around a certain technology. So we are not talking about the drill market here anymore. We are talking about the market of installing something at home, or installing something on a commercial site, and not about the technology. So we define markets, we define needs, we ultimately define opportunities, even segments, and ultimately also strategy through these jobs to be done lens. As we understand that a job is rather stable, and therefore the need is rather stable if we define it like that. So that is theoretical, philosophical point of view here. And we want to also share a process that operationalizes this way of thinking, and that really brings it into practice. And that is outcome-driven innovation and the outcome-driven innovation process. It actually consists of a number of steps. The first step in that process is to define your market around the job to be done. The example that I already shared, going as a drill manufacturer, not to say I'm in the market for drills, but to say I'm in the market for installing something at home. That would be a new viewpoint on the market that you are in, and it is a different type of market definition from an innovator's point of view. In a second step, you then want to analyze this job to be done, this market, from the viewpoint of how does this job work, what is it that people want to achieve, and you execute that kind of job to be done, and you want to analyze the job in all of its details. The important point here is that you want to understand all the needs that are involved in getting a certain job done. So what are all the needs that people have, for example, when they install something at home, independent of technologies that they are using for that. So in that step number 2, we want to understand all the needs that are there, all the needs, and get a very, very comprehensive needs model on the table. Once we understand all the needs that are there when people are trying to get a certain job done, we can then start to quantify all of those needs together with customers, of course, with what we call job executors, and get back from them a rating on which of those needs, out of these many needs that are there, which of those needs are extremely important and which of these needs are not very well served. So we want to zoom in on importance scores and satisfaction scores, which will generate an opportunity landscape that you can see here and that we will go into a little bit closer than later on in the session here. Now, once we have this data in place, we can then also zoom in that data and analyze that quantitative data to gain an understanding of hidden segments of opportunity. So hidden groups of people that have different answering patterns when it comes to those needs, and to identify segments in the market that cannot be seen otherwise. And based on this needs model that includes all the needs that are there, plus a quantification of all those needs, we can then start to formulate and deploy a winning innovation strategy, a product strategy, a service strategy that will build upon the needs that are really there and the priorities of those needs that come from the market, that come from the customers. And finally, when this is clear, it's then possible to really generate ideas, create concepts, come up with a long-term roadmap for the creation of not only products, but also services up until new business models that will ensure that these needs are being addressed in a measurably better way than at the moment. So that is the process in a nutshell, and I would like to share some viewpoints now on each of those steps in the next few minutes. Now, when we talk about defining the market around the job to be done, there's a very important remark that I want to make here. A market is always defined as a group of people and the job that these people are trying to get done. Be aware, there's no technology, there's no product, there's no service mentioned in such a market definition. So there are two questions that we want to answer here and that you probably want to answer for your business. The first question is, whom do we want to create value for? Whom do you want to create value for? Who is the job executor group that you want to create value for? And the second question is, and what is the job that we want to create value for? What is the job that these people have that we want to create value for? If we answer these two kind of questions, we get a very good understanding of the market that we are in from an innovator's perspective. And the nice thing here is that this market definition will be extremely stable over time, because the job executor will stay the same for a long period of time, most probably, and also the job will stay very stable over time. What will change, of course, are the solutions and the services and probably digital things that come up that help people get their job done better. Now, and this is something where we need to take decisions when it comes to innovation. Who is the group of executors that we want to create value for? Who is it, when we come to a medical example here, that we want to create value for? There are patients, of course, out there, but there are also physicians. There are educators who give education to patients. There are caregivers. There are insurance companies that need to pay for whatever kind of services and solutions we are creating here. And there are also probably manufacturers, other manufacturers, our own manufacturer representatives that we want to create value for and that we need to consider. So it's a classical, I would say, stakeholder approach that you will stand in front of when it comes to your innovation ecosystem. And here we need to take decisions. And there are some certain guiding questions that help us get this decision on whom we want to create value for firsthand. And I want to share these guiding questions with you. These are, for example, who perceives the highest value of your existing product or your intended product or service? Who has the best understanding of how that products or services are applied and how they perform in getting the job done? Who has the highest costs or substantial problems when the product fails or the service is not delivered? Who has the highest impact on the product's handling on site, and who is responsible for the job performance and for improvement tasks? Now, these are some of very important guiding questions that will help you ultimately take a decision on what the group of people is that you probably want to start to create value for. And let us go into that example here. And this is a recommended, so to say, first group of people that you will want to consider for value creation in the medical space, which is the patient. And here you will realize, okay, there are certain patients out there, certain patient groups out there, and you want to also understand what the job is that you want to create value for. So here in this example, it's patients who want to maintain a certain body parameter in a desired range. And I use this example here of this job statement body parameter as a template for you. A body parameter can be many different things. That can be, for example, weight, to maintain a certain level of weight in a desired range. That can be blood parameters that people want to keep in a desired range, like blood sugar, for example, or other parameters that you want to keep in a desired range. So that would be a job to be done from a patient's perspective, and that could be a market definition for a medical company. On the other hand, as we realize, there are other job executors in that ecosystem as well. There are physicians. So what is the job of a physician? For example, here, a physician's job could be to determine a therapy for a specific patient, to monitor the therapy for a specific patient, and so on. So this could be jobs that physicians have. And then we have patient educators in this example, in this ecosystem. And the educator, for example, wants to educate patients in therapy execution. And what you can see here is that the job to be done is not a given thing. The job to be done is being derived out of the group of people that you want to create value for. And when you do it like this, you will get a much clearer understanding of what the job really is that you probably want to create value for. And you will also realize that depending on the group of people that you select for your innovation challenge and for your business development, you will realize that there are different jobs out there, and ultimately that these are different markets. So if you say that a market is a group of people and a job that they want to get done, you realize that in such an ecosystem as we have it here, there's probably 6 different markets that you probably want to address. And by gaining an understanding what has the biggest effect on the market, where you can have the biggest effect on, so to say, patient well-being, And on the other hand, where are the capabilities of your own organization, you get a very good approach to take this kind of decision where to focus on in your innovation ecosystem. Now, probably this will raise further questions on your end. Please put that questions into the Q&A session. And what I also want to highlight here is you can get back to Jan and get back to myself anytime after this webinar as well. And we will be happy to, to enter further discussions on this. Having said that, once we are clear about the market that we want to create value for, the group of people that we want to create value for, and the job that they have, we want to zoom in on that job, and we want to better understand how this job really works and where we can really create value in that job to be done. And this is the second step of the approach. What I want to share here with you is the job map model. So the job map analyzes the job and the problem space. This is more or less guiding questions when you want to understand a job to be done. These are 8 areas that define a job from our point of view. This is also published in Harvard Business Review in the Customer-Centered Innovation Map that you can also download from the website. Now, it is, first of all, a job map details step by step what the customer is trying to get done, not what they are actually doing. So this is not the real process that people are running through, because the real process always depends on certain solutions. This is what people are ultimately trying to achieve when they get the job done. So a job map is solution independent. It details the ideal process flow and applies across geographies. So we want to ask people, what is it that you are trying to define when you get your job done? What is it that you're trying to locate or gather before you execute your job? What is it that you are trying to prepare or organize when running through your job? What is it that you want to actually execute? What is it that you want to be able to monitor, modify, and ultimately conclude? So this is kind of a framework of questions when trying to analyze a job to be done. And in this example here that I want to share with you in a little bit simplified version, it turns out that the job map, for example, for a patient educator probably looks like this. When you want to educate patient in therapy execution, you want to determine the patient's therapy needs. Educators want to be able to define individual therapy management goals as a locate step. They want to be able to specify the areas where patients need therapy training. They want to confirm patients' ability to follow the individual therapy. So what you can see here is that based on these guiding questions, you will generate a job map that really specifies what the job is consisting of, what people are trying to achieve when they run through that job. And same time, this is independent of solutions, it's solution agnostic, and it's valid globally. So wherever you have a patient educator, it will have that job map because it's independent of solutions, it's independent of the country where this is happening. So when you create this kind of needs model, it's stable over time, and it's also applicable everywhere in the world where people have that job. So that's I would say the important benefit of such a job map, of such a needs model. Now, we are not fully through with understanding the job at that point. What we still want to understand is, how do they measure their success? Now, once we understand all the steps that are involved, the question is, how do you measure your success in each of those steps? And success is defined in 3 dimensions. There are 3 ways to get a job done better. First of all, people want to get a job done faster, which probably every one of you would agree when you look at your own jobs to be done. Second, people want to get the job done more predictable, with less variability, with less errors, and also people want to gain a higher output and a higher throughput without more input. So people want to be very efficient in getting the job done. And now these are the guiding questions that you probably want to bring in when you talk about the job with job executors. You want to ask them what limits your ability in being faster, what limits your ability in gaining more predictable results, and what limits your ability in gaining a higher output or throughput. And these kind of questions then generate desired outcome statements from these job executors. I want to share some of those in the medical space here for these patient educators. When you ask them what limits their ability of executing the first step of the job, determining the patient's therapy needs, then educators will tell you that they want to minimize the likelihood that information about the patient's actual diet habits necessary to specify the optimal therapy is incomplete. Now, this is a very, very precise statement. It's measurable. You can measure the likelihood, and it's free of interpretation. So, like everyone will understand that statement when they read it. Furthermore, that statement will stay the same over years. It's independent of solutions that people are using. Most probably, if you generate better solutions for that, the satisfaction scores will go up. But the statement itself, the need itself, is stable over time. Another example here is when you ask patient educators about what they want to achieve and they monitor the success in executing the individual therapy, that they want to minimize the time it takes to determine the reason why a patient fails to keep a parameter in the desired range. For example, a lack of discipline, changes in the patient's life, additional conditions, etc. But what is measurable here is that educators want to be able to minimize the time it takes to determine the reason why a patient fails to keep a parameter in a desired range, to adhere to the therapy, and so on. That's measurable. It's very clear what's meant with it, and it's independent of solutions. And even more, it's independent of the geography. It's globally true. That is a need that every patient educator has that executes that job. So now we have measurable desired outcomes that really describe how people measure their success in getting their job done. Another example is this one. At the end of the job, in the conclude step, people want to minimize the time it takes to provide relevant information about the patient to others outside of the education, another doctor, a psychologist, or something else. This is another extremely clearly defined, specified need that is measurable, that is independent of solutions. And ultimately, what you will generate when you run through the whole job with this kind of guiding questions, you will realize the full job needs model. You will understand all the job steps that are involved and also the desired outcomes that determine the success and how people are measuring their success in each of those job steps. So what you will have here already in the second step of that process is that you know all the needs that are involved and you know how people measure their success, and you have these needs independent of solutions and independent of time. What you can do with that is take a decision and help taking decision of your future vision. So what should be our future vision in our business can be answered with that model here, because there are only two questions to be answered here. How can we get more of the job done on a single platform? Once you understand the whole job, you can have a very informed decision about getting more of the job done with probably a single solution platform, a solution system, a digital platform. And the second question that you can answer here is, how can we get the job done better and even cheaper in each of those steps? So it will be a very, very informed decision about a future business vision once you have that needs model on the table. Now, the next step will then be to quantify all of these needs and to get a feedback on which of these many needs that you have found in your needs analysis is the most important one and the least satisfied one with existing solutions. And to achieve that, you will use a questionnaire. So there is a questionnaire that comes up with all these desired outcomes, with all these needs that are in the needs model. And we are asking customers, job executors, for two parameters. We want to understand how important is each of those needs specifically for each of those customers, and how well is it satisfied from their point of view. So you will use a number of 180 to up to 1,000 questionnaires. You can do this globally. You can do this in just one country. You can do this in certain business areas in your organization. What you will do is you will carve out a bunch of questionnaires to many, many different people, different job executors, giving them those questions. And they should fill that in from their own personal viewpoint. Now, when you get back these questionnaires, you can create what we call the opportunity landscape. In that landscape, you have all the needs inside. Every dot that you can see here is an outcome, is a desired outcome, is a need that is evaluated by all the customers that have filled in that questionnaire. Now, you will see that there are some of those needs that are underserved, where all the customers say, or the majority of the customers say, that it is extremely important for them, and same time, it is not very well satisfied. So these are underserved needs on the right-hand side of that graph. Then you will realize that a number of those needs is probably not important to the majority of customers out there, and same time extremely well served. We call that overserved needs, needs that are not important and overserved with existing solutions. That's the overserved part of the equation. And finally, there might be needs out there that are same time extremely important and also extremely well served with existing solutions. We call those the table stakes. And now, once we have this understanding for the total market, we can already come up with a first prioritization, taking decisions on what needs shall be focused on in the innovation process, most probably the underserved ones, for creating better solutions, but also what needs shall be focused on for lowering the performance of our solutions. For the overserved needs, can we lower performance? Can we come up with probably cheaper solutions, less performing solutions when it comes to overserved needs? And now this gives us a very good decision basis, not only for what do we need to make better, where do we need to invest to create better performance, but also where can we de-invest, where can we come up with, to use a term here, disruptive approaches to lower the performance of existing solutions and to save money and to save resources on that. So this is what we now can informally have an informed discussion about. And it goes even further. Once we have data in place, it's also possible to zoom in on that data and to discover hidden segments of opportunity in any market. You will realize, and we realize this in many of our research studies, that not every customer is identical, that you have job executors out there that are extremely challenged in getting their job done. These are those people who will give you high importance scores for many needs and low satisfaction scores same time for many needs. And you can see in this example here, this would be 24% of the total population in the market. And this is what we call an underserved segment. On the other hand, you will find out that there are a number of customers out there that is not so challenged, where all these needs are not so relevant for them and that are extremely well satisfied with many of those needs in getting the job done. We call those the overserved customers, and overserved respondents in this case is 19% of the total market. And something in between, there's a segment in between, 57% of customers in that example is appropriately served with existing solutions. So now when you're able to zoom in even further on this, you can also decide on what would be the right market segmentation for your business based on true needs profiles, and also to take decisions on where shall we come up with, for how many customers shall we come up with, probably with improved solutions, what is their willingness to pay, what is the real market potential behind these segments, and so on. And now, based on all of these insights, it is much more easy to come up with decisions on a growth strategy, on a product strategy, on a very detailed service strategy. So like charging more or charging less, getting the job done better, or even getting a job done worse, always depending on the segmentation of the market, where you can see a sustaining strategy would be advised for those customers who are more or less satisfied with existing solutions. A disruptive strategy would be advised for those customers who are overserved, and a more differentiated strategy that comes up with better solutions and also probably charging more for that would be for those customers who are highly underserved and prepared to also pay more for better solutions. Now, having said that, what we realize, what is extremely important for organizations, is that you align your teams on that understanding, that it's not one person in the whole organization who knows about those insights, but that you really share that with your teams, and that you put in these opportunities into your product teams to come up with a product strategy, but that you also share that with your digital teams to come up with a digital strategy. That you, when you realize and that you discuss that with your teams, is your existing business model the right one to address those opportunities? Or would you probably need to upgrade and innovate also your business model? Then you want to share this with the respective teams in your organization. And ultimately, and this is very often the low-hanging fruit, you want to make sure that your marketing teams are aware of those opportunities in the market, and that you also use that for communication, for value proposition activities, even for web campaigns and sales pitches. So what I want to share here is that we want to make sure that everyone is aligned, and that decision making in all of these areas in the organization will be guided by a common understanding of the most important opportunities for value creation in the market. And this is what I want to sort of say, summarize here for that process. We are, so to say, in that step now, running through all of the steps. And I want to hand over now to Jan again, so that you said you want to share, so to say, your experience on how you align the organization, how you guide decision making in your organization based on those insights that you generate out of outcome-driven innovation research. Jan, over to you.
Thank you, Martin. You made a very, very comprehensive overview of the steps that have to be done, and that have to be done properly, and that take us to exactly quantified unmet needs, or maybe overserved needs. This slide is about how to, let me just put it like this, how to make the organization believe it, how to make the organization respond to it as something relevant, something that they find relevant for their particular decisions. So I can imagine that in a smaller organization, this process could be simpler. I'm from a large organization, and there the process is not that simple. So we are at the end of the jobs to be done study, let's say. We organize a series of activation workshops. I have to say that the people that are key in the decision-making process about the innovation have to be aware of that study already when it is running. It's too late to make them aware in the activation workshop. It should not come as a surprise. So it should be an activity which is somehow endorsed in the organization, and then we take it through 4 different blocks. One is basically strategy alignment and prioritization. There are more reasons to prioritize, or more axes how to prioritize things, than just that desired outcome. There are certain strategic choices that the company has, so we have to apply those filters. That's the first step. Ending with a strategy endorsed output. And then we go through different innovation horizons, because we have a short-term horizon, core horizon, then emerging horizon, which could be like 1-2 years, future horizon, even beyond that. And there are different people involved in executing and deciding actually about those horizons. So we always invite the key people in that particular cluster of the company. We call it clusters, from marketing, from product management, from the business strategy, and just go through the results and try to understand what is actually important and actionable for them. Some of the conclusions also can mean that we have to trigger a strategic update. That we realize that the strategic decisions do not correspond with what we heard from the customers, and we have to basically activate a strategic update. So the main point here is just getting the results. That's not yet a guarantee that it will be actually endorsed in the company. Take care of activating the results properly with all the stakeholders internally.
Okay, thank you, Jan. Thank you for sharing that. So that is, so to say, out of practice within Philips, and we have a lot of viewpoints here in the chat and in the Q&A part. And I would like to use the opportunity now to really dig into that a little bit. First question, I think this is already answered. Will you share the recording with us after the session? Yes. There will be a recording that is being shared with you, and a handout of the slides. Now, another one is that I would like to publish here now. It is about B2B and B2C. So, do you think that it can? Where can I read this now? Just a moment. Can you share some successful examples of B2B and B2B2C? And there's another question on, I consider it equally applicable to B2B, B2C, or even B2B2C. I'm always surprised with the diversity of industries that already use it, from a paper mill to fisherman's friend. Jan, your viewpoint, B2B versus B2C, what would be your viewpoint?
My viewpoint, and that's actually what you just read. It was my answer. This mentioning fisherman's friend. I'm always surprised how agnostic this method is to the industries. It's basically applicable in such a large range of industries that I'm always surprised with that in the summits that you are doing. We have Deutsche Bahn, we have McDonald's, we have so they are like companies from completely different areas, because the method is actually built on jobs to be done that are applicable regardless of whether this is B2B or B2C. So I consider that method applicable across the industries. Of course, the approaches can differ slightly. How to do that? How to make sure that you, for instance, in the B2B environment, find the right mix of stakeholders, right? Where for the B2C, it doesn't have to be such a big issue.
Yeah. Also, my experience on this is that the target groups are typically more easy to recruit when it comes to B2C, and when it comes to B2B, and you want to talk to a very, very, very specific target group, it is sometimes not that easy to get access to that target group. But this is also what I want to share here, is that there are specialized agencies that can be used that help to find exactly that kind of target groups. Mm-hmm. And also in the medical space, this is a typical approach that we use, that we work with specialized field agencies that get a briefing on the target group and that can help to really access that target groups. I would also share another question that we have here. Assuming that you have a low experienced team performing the job analysis, how much time would you estimate for a successful execution coming to a jobs to be done needs map? I would like to pass this on to you, Jan.
Mm-hmm. I would recommend not to do just jobs to be done process with the low experienced team alone, right? I think that in my opinion, there is a big chance that the team will just stray away from the principles of the method. So I believe that it is important to have the team trained, work with I don't know, for instance, Edizon, or with basically somebody that could teach the team and bring the team up to speed. The first, we always did that, right? So first projects that we did, we always do actually with the consultancy, and later smaller projects we can maybe try to do alone, but usually we use an external support. And it depends on how big that scope is. I saw companies doing processes for a year. We typically are able to do it in about 4 months in Philips, the individual project, something like that. But it very much depends on how difficult it is to reach out to the audience, exactly as Martin said.
Yeah, this is also my experience that when we look at the qualitative phase, like to understand all the needs involved in a certain job to be done, this can be done depending on the target group in 1 to 2, sometimes 3 months time. And when it comes to quantifying it, it's about the same time range. So the shortest ODI projects that we have done were approximately, where all was in, all the whole process that you see here, in about 3 months. And but it can be longer depending on the target group that you are trying to analyze. I found another one that I would like to share here in the whole group. It is about organizations and culture. And there is a statement that says, I found working with large organizations that they are risk averse. We stick to what we know and do not move outside our comfort zone, especially when that comfort zone is very successful in the present. This was another comment to that. Jan, what is your experience with this? Large organizations, comfort zone, sticking to what have been successful in the past?
I think that this is quite a normal thing, right? It's an immunity system of the big organizations, so that they do not get completely detoured by crazy ideas. So I think that I think that the risk averse, the bigger the organization, typically the more risk averse. But I think that here the ODI is the risk mitigation technique, right? Yeah. So I think that if you use outcome-driven innovation, you reduce risk of decisions, because you are deciding based on objective, quantified data. So as soon as people understand what they see, that this is actually not just somebody's opinion, but it is customer data, quantified, properly processed, collected, then it is reducing the risk. So ideal for risk-averse organizations, in my opinion.
So would you say that it helps you get a decision on something that is outside the comfort zone of an organization if you approach them with this kind of insights? Is this your experience? Would you say that really?
I wouldn't say that it is just it makes it super simple to do that, but I think it makes it possible.
Okay.
So getting the company out of the comfort zone is always difficult, maybe even for good reasons somehow, I don't know. But this type of argumentation or this type of data makes it possible. So I believe that this is one of the key features of outcome-driven innovation that we have at this moment, that it allows productive discussion about things that are at the edge of the comfort zone or beyond.
Thank you. There's one thing I would also like to share is that typically we are taking these opportunity scores, like these needs that we find and that are extremely important and not very well served. and that we also translate that into value levers in terms of money, for example. If you say that people want to minimize the time it takes to achieve this and that, you can estimate the time that they currently need to spend for that, that, and you can take an estimation of how much does this time cost. So if you would be able to reduce a certain number of time for a job executor in getting their job done in a clinical environment, you can come up with numbers that will also specify what the value lever actually is in terms of numbers, in terms of money. And this really then helps taking decisions in organizations, in my experience, for decision makers. If you can show them, okay, now this is the value lever that we have here, that's X millions that we can address here by addressing this unmet need, and we have proof and validity that this is really a potential in that market. So it really helps to, also translate customer needs in those terms that typically decision makers are expecting to have, like a number on the table. And this is what it really helps as well. Let me show you one, go a little bit ahead, watching the time as well. What I also want to share with you is something that helps aligning an organization and supports decision making in an organization. And that is making this insight data accessible for the whole organization, or at least making it accessible for those people who need to take decisions in an organization. And what we are doing here is, we call that the dashboard. That's the ODI dashboard that is being created based on these customer insights and this customer database. And that dashboard is accessible via a web browser for everyone in an organization that you want to give this access to. And so people from product management, people from marketing, people from sales, and other functions in the organization can access that, zoom in on certain geographies, for example, zoom in on certain unmet needs that they are interested in, customer segments that they are interested in, and gain an understanding of what is the top 3, the top 5 unmet needs for that customer group, and take their decisions based on these insights. So this is also something that I want to share with you. We call this democratizing insights in an organization, and by doing so, activating people in the organization. Now, I would like to use now the opportunity for a short summary from you, Jan. Maybe you wanna give us this summary that you have prepared here, and I'm looking forward.
Yeah, I just put here 5 points of certain recommendations for those who want to start with jobs to be done based on our own experience. Let's just, viewing at the time, take it quickly. I recommend to start small, not to just immediately define a mega project. Start on something where you have good access to job executors. That is absolutely essential, and learn step by step. Creating a core team is very important. It's not important to teach everybody in the organization about jobs to be done, but have at least 1 or 2 people that really understand it thoroughly, and then just spread the understanding. It's important to capture the spirit of the jobs to be done. I always found it like almost martial arts, something that you should master and not to try to improve somehow, right? So the method is very well thought through. The author keeps optimizing it. It's good to learn to follow it as it was meant. And I think it's good to consider using jobs to be done consultancy, because they help you use the method correctly and to expand in more sophisticated ways of using it. It's important, I think, in the organization to have a sponsor in the top management. So a lot of people are aware, a lot of executives are aware of jobs to be done. It's known topic in business schools, but it's good to have somebody who actually endorses it on that level. And just wanted to say the topic was making the decisions faster and better. So I'd just like to summarize in a couple of words why do I believe that it helps us to make decisions better. I already said that because it provides objective, quantified, actionable data on customer needs. So the decisions are better. We are not deciding on subjective things, but on objective data that are validated. And for faster, because it replaces internal discussion about things that the customer knows better. If we do not have access to this understanding or input of the customer, there can be a long discussion about things that internally we cannot know better than the customer. And I'm not talking about solutions. I don't think that the customer provides solutions. They shall provide the desired outcomes and the level of how much they are unmet. So that would be my summary.
Thank you, Jan. Really to the point. Thank you very much for your sharing of your experiences. I would like to give one more thing to the audience now, further touch points, so to say. There's a lot of literature, a lot of books and white papers out there. Just check out the website of Edizon, check out the website of Strategin, of our partner in the US, headed by Tony Alvik, and dig deeper. There's also the JTBD Institute, where we are doing seminars, webinars, online formats. There's an e-learning out there. Just find out what best suits you and fits to you. Of course, this is our approach, that we work together with our clients, and delivering insights, doing the research, but also same time training your team and enabling them to also capture that spirit and execute it on their own. One thing in that is that I want to announce here. We will be in Wolfsburg together with a car manufacturer that is located there as well, and we will have a masterclass advanced in October 5 to 6, a 2 days masterclass where we will apply that way of thinking on mobility, and where we invite people who are interested in mobility jobs to be done and innovating in mobility on the one hand, but on the other hand, anyone who wants to really train and get a better understanding of how to apply that framework to any given industry. So no matter in what industry you are, if you're interested in a methodology, join that. And if you're interested in automotive as well, it would be even more a reason to join it. Probably we will also have a factory tour within that Volkswagen company. And we are looking forward to this. So having said that, thank you very much. Thank you very much for everyone, for your interest, for joining us here, for bringing in your viewpoints and questions. And thank you very much, Jan, for sharing your experience, and for being available for everyone who has further questions. You said to me, Jan, in the beginning, it would be okay for you if people use your LinkedIn account or hook up with you there or send you an email. And same for me as well. Let's keep in that discussion, and let's create more value for people out there together in all of our organizations. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. Thank you for inviting me, and indeed, you can reach out to me with questions. Thank you.